We've been doing lemons for a long time, and it always amazes us. Every year, there's a handful of cars that show up that we've never seen before raced in our series. Here's 5 that, until now anyway, we still haven't seen.
We'll start with the Volkswagen Dasher. Now, we're not sure how it's possible, but Volkswagen's first front-wheel drive and first liquid-cooled car sold in the United States somehow has not turned up for a Lemons race. Now, even when Lemons started in 2006, Dashers were pretty thin on the ground, and few people could probably remember even seeing one moving or, otherwise.
So what is a Dasher? Well, the short version is it's a first-generation Passat. They call it the B1. It's got some commonality with the first Audi 80, also known as the Audi Fox, which we also haven't seen in Lemons. Basically, it's a larger, heavier Rabbit that was sold for about a year before the Rabbit came to North American shores. That means if you find one, it'll probably have the 1.6 Rabbit gas engine or the legendary 52 horsepower, on a good day, Volkswagen diesel.
Now, some of the gas-powered ones had early Bosch fuel injection. I'll let you cringe at that for a few moments. That likely totaled a whole bunch of them out, and rust generally took care of the rest of them, but there must still be a couple of them out there, so find one, slap pretty much any Volkswagen engine in it, and you'll probably end up in Class C.
Next on the list is the Merkur Scorpio. The Merkur XR4 Ti, or as Lemons Judge Shelley calls it, the Sucks to Suck, is not rare in Lemons. We've had maybe a dozen or so over the years. The XR4 Ti was turbocharged. It was a sporty European coupe. Basically, that meant it was a Ford Sierra with a Mustang SVO engine, but the Scorpio, that was the grown-up European sports sedan by the totally made-up and very confusing to Americans brand Merkur.
Merkur, by the way, is German for Mercury. And the Scorpio was meant to compete with the Mercedes 190e and maybe the BMW 5 Series, in theory. Honestly, nobody had any idea what the hell the Scorpio was supposed to be, and it didn't help that the engine they chose was the same one in the Ford Ranger at the same time.
Merkur sold 22,000 Scorpios over 4 years, which, depending on your perspective, is either extremely not a lot or a lot. However, they seem to be one of those cars that people just refuse to throw away. If there was a problem with it, they'd park it out back because they were going to get around to fixing it someday. They do pop up for sale periodically. Go find one.
We move on to something far more common in America, the Chevy Celebrity. Now, Chevrolet built 2.15 million Celebrities in the 1980s before replacing it with the Lumina, but somehow nobody has raced one in Lemons. We've had 2 of the 4 GMA bodies, the Century and the Cutlass Sierra, but we haven't had a Celebrity or the Pontiac 6000. Now, all of those cars still dot the Rust Belt landscape and are truly the cockroach of cars, but the down-market Celebrity is getting a bit more rare.
Now, you had a few engine choices with your Chevy Celebrity. You had the notorious Iron Duke 4-cylinder, that came in the base model. Then you had the GM Sound of Power 2.8 liter and the later 3.1 liter 60-degree V6. That was a few bucks extra. Now, the rarest of them all was the 4.3 V6 diesel, which was based on the ill-fated Olds 350 diesel. That was short-lived. Shocking. Allegedly, you could get a V6 5-speed manual option in 87 and 88. Look out, BMW E30.
Now, of course, the Chevy Celebrity is the pinnacle of General Motors automotive design in that there are entirely straight lines in the way it was drawn up, but in real GM design fashion, there was a dizzying array of special editions and trims for the Celebrity, like the Eurosport, the Eurosport VR, and Olympic Eurosport.
I am feeling very Olympic today. How about you?
Okay, so 3, but still, how have we not had a Celebrity in Lemons?
Next up, we've got the Chrysler 5th Avenue. During the era of the K car, Chrysler got rid of nearly every rear-wheel drive car in their lineup except for the M body. They hung on to that all the way through 1989. So that includes the Dodge Diplomat, Plymouth Grand Fury, and the Chrysler Fifth Avenue. So why did this car last while all the other rear-wheel drive cars got thrown out? Well, as all of the big three knew at this time, there was a certain segment of the buying populace, let's call them the coupe demographic. They still wanted V8 full-size cars, and so they lasted in the product lineups for the big three for a long time. Chrysler, they packed these cars full of options, all kinds of luxury bits, but mechanically underneath, it was more or less the same B-body chassis that was developed in 1962.
Well, actually, the M body was the second generation of the R body, which was the downsized version of the B body that Chrysler killed officially in 1980. But really what that means is it is a carbureted Chrysler 318 small block and a 727 Torque Flight automatic, aka things Chrysler developed in 1962. It also means that the Fifth Avenue has front torsion bar suspension, just like a Porsche 911, and rear leaf springs, just like a dump truck.
In the wide world of Chrysler M-bodies, we've seen a few racing lemons. We've seen a Murata, an Imperial, a sedan Diplomat. We haven't seen an 80s Grand Fury. We haven't seen a last generation Cordoba. You can bring those, but what we really want to see is the late Chrysler Fifth Avenue. It's a great car, but don't take our word for it.
The New Yorker Fifth Avenue, truly impressive value in a luxury car.
I'm in the car business, and I've been saying for a long time that Chrysler makes cars that are as good, if not better, than anything coming out of America, Europe, or Japan.
Chrysler Fifth Avenue. It just may be the finest luxury car value in the country.
And the last one on the list for now is the Ford Maverick. No, not that one. This is the 24 Hours of Lemons. I think you know what Maverick we're talking about. Yes, that one. When people speak about lemons from the 1970s, inevitably people talk about the Pinto, the Vega, the Gremlin. Most people seem to have forgotten about the Ford Maverick, even though Ford built 2 million of these stupid things.
The Maverick lived in the time of the 1970s fuel crisis, so at some point Ford thought, well, this car needs to be our import fighter. Now, when the big three said that they wanted an import fighter back then, that just meant they'd take the car that they had, make it about 10% smaller, put in the same inefficient ancient straight six and V8 engine options, and try to market it as something that was economical. But if you're shopping for a 4-cylinder Toyota Celica in 1974, I don't think you're going to be swayed by a Maverick with a 302.
Naturally, Ford muddied that water even further by initially advertising the Maverick against the Volkswagen Beetle in the classic "what segment are you even talking about" method that would follow American car companies for the next 30 years, but never applied to the Germans at all.
Okay, so Ford/Mercury really was very confused about how to market their own product. They started out with this rugged Western cowboy guy, then for some reason they switched over to targeting young college ladies, which became a little creepy when their top trim was the Maverick Grabber.
Mercury had their own version, which was the Comet, and it was, for all intents and purposes, the exact same car. Now, they tried to sell it to active young couples, but it being Mercury, the actual demographic buying the car was this guy.
Now, despite all of that, they sold a crap load of these things. Maybe because it took a while for the buying public to realize that quote-unquote new designs like the Maverick, like the Comet, like the AMC Gremlin really weren't that new, and they were probably 10 years behind the Japanese alternatives. They spiced it up further and maybe confused the buyers even more by offering cosmetic, non-functional, but pretty cool trim packages like the Grabber and also the Sprint and the Stallion.
Now, a whole lot of Mavericks ended up getting cut up and having big engines thrown in them and were used for drag racing. Kind of happened to all the economy cars in the 70s, but they are still out there. You can find a Ford Maverick, you can find a Mercury Comet. Go get one, throw a cage in it, put any engine in it, be the first one to have one in lemons.
Every second you don't subscribe or watch one of these videos, another Vega is sent to the crusher. Won't you help us save Classic?